Hare Krishna. We continue speaking from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 6, Dhyan Yoga, text 40. We have been hearing Arjuna has been asking Krishna, his doubt was if somebody begins on this transcendental path, but he does not complete, he's not able to finish his process, what happens to him? He's going to lose materially, he's going to lose spiritually, he'll become like a riven cloud, which is blown by the wind here and there. What happens to him? Arjuna is asking. So Krishna speaks, is replying to Arjuna's question in this text. Shri Bhagwan Uvacha Partha Naiveha Namutra Vinashastasya Vidyate Nahi Kalyana Kritkaschid Durgatim Tata Gacchate. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Son of Pritha, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities, does not meet with destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, Text 17, Sri Narad Muni instructs Vyasadeva as follows. Tyaktva swadharmam charanam bhujam hare bhajan apakvo tatha athapate tato yadi yatra kva vabhadram abhud amushyakim ko vartha apto bhajatam swadharmataha. If someone gives up all material prospects and takes complete shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no loss or degradation in any way. On the other hand, a non-devotee may fully engage in his occupational duties and yet not gain anything. So, Narad Muni was instructing to Srila Vyasadeva, because Vyasadeva had written all the Vedas, all the he had put in divided the Vedas and then written the commentaries and everything. Well, he had not yet written Srimad Bhagavatam. So he had written the Vedas and he had written the Vedanta Sutra also. But he had not yet spoken the Bhagavatam. So Vyasadeva was feeling dissatisfied. He was feeling dissatisfied. And his guru, Narad Muni, comes to him and tells him, you know why you're feeling dissatisfied? Because you have not glorified the Supreme Lord. You have not clearly told the people of Kali Yuga that glorify the Supreme Lord. Engaging in devotional service is the most direct path. You have not yet spoken that, and that's why you're feeling dissatisfied. So Narad Muni speaks this. He said, you're telling them follow the Vedas. So even if one follows, does his duties very properly, what gain is there if he did not get to know of Krishna? He's still going to be in the material world. Yeah, sure, he'll get some pious credit because he's doing his duties perfectly. So he'll be promoted to the heavenly planets. But he's not going to be able to go back home, back to Godhead. But on the other hand, one who is not able to complete his duties, material duties properly, if he surrenders to God, he has no loss. He does not lose in any way. We get scared. Oh, if I don't do it, I will be the loser. But our true loss is when we are failing to take shelter of God. That is our loss. For material prospects, there are many activities, both scriptural and customary. A transcendentalist is supposed to give up all material activities for the sake of spiritual advancement in life, Krishna consciousness. One may argue that by Krishna consciousness, one may attain the highest perfection if it is completed. But if one does not attain such perfectional stage, then he loses both materially and spiritually. It is enjoined in the scriptures that one has to suffer the reaction of not executing prescribed duties. Therefore, one who fails to discharge transcendental activities properly becomes subjected to these reactions. The Bhagavatam assures the unsuccessful transcendentalist that there need be no worries. Even though he may be subjected to the reaction for not perfectly executing prescribed duties, he's still not a loser. because auspicious Krishna consciousness is never forgotten, and one so engaged will continue to be so, even if he's low-born in the next life. On the other hand, one who simply follows strictly the prescribed duties need not necessarily attain auspicious results if he's lacking in Krishna consciousness. So Bhagavatam is saying that, okay, you may do your duties so perfectly, but you didn't begin devotional service. So in the next life, you don't know where you stand. You really don't know where you stand. For sure, you're not going to be able to continue with your Krishna consciousness because you didn't begin it as yet, unless one gets the mercy of a devotee. But if one who's not able to do his duties properly because he's taken up Krishna consciousness, so in the next life, he may be born in a lower family because of negligence of not performing duties, but because he has engaged in devotional service, he begins from that platform where he left off. That faith, that journey has already started. That how much ever Krishna conscious he got in the previous life, that is not forgotten. He starts in the next life from that same point of where he left off. If in the material world, we study, we do our ABCs and we learn our numbers, then we may go to high school or graduate school or whatever. But once we give up the body, when we take up another body, and if we are born as a human being, again, we have to learn everything. We have to learn everything. But Krishna consciousness, once one begins this on the path of Krishna consciousness, it's not lost. Whatever we are reading today, whatever we are understanding today, that will never ever be lost. No matter where we are in the next life, we will continue from the point where we left off. It builds on that. Not that we have to start again from scratch. No. Much ever one has progressed in Krishna consciousness.
Sorry, I have a question. So that means that if the person did not do he did his prescribed duty very nicely, but he did not follow, like he did not do anything for the Krishna consciousness, right? Yeah. Then there is this difference between two of them.
Yeah.
Like as we were talking about the butcher, like because he did his prescribed duty, but that is against the scriptures.
I'm sorry?
Is it? Like a butcher, we were talking about a butcher that day, that he is doing his prescribed duty.
Yeah.
Because that's his duty.
Yeah.
But that is not according to the scriptures.
That's right. That's right. And so he is not engaging in Krishna consciousness, right? Mm-hmm. So if he does not begin his Krishna consciousness, then in the next life, where will he be? So because many people say, oh, I don't have time to engage in Krishna consciousness because I'm so busy taking care of my family, taking care of my duty. I have no time for this. But what Bhagavatam is trying to say is, even if you do your duty so properly, you're saying you don't have time, but what is going to be the result? What is the result of this? You're not beginning your Krishna consciousness. Then, even if you do your duty perfectly, you have not gained anything.
Oh, okay.
This is the point that Bhagavatam is trying to say. And Bhagavatam is saying, even if you're not able to do your duty properly, but because you have begun your Krishna consciousness, there is no loss. Because you have begun your Krishna consciousness. So from the next life, you will begin from the point where you left off.
Mm-hmm. You got the point. Like you should do Krishna conscious, even if you're not able to do sometimes your duties. Doing Krishna consciousness, doing devotional service is higher than all that. At least you should engage in something, do something.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah, okay, got the point. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, because many of us, we say, oh, I have so many duties, I have no time. You know, oh, I'm doing my duty, I have no time. So
yeah, because people read Bhagavad Gita, but then they just have their own interpretations after reading. So they say that you should do your duty. Krishna is saying you should do your duty. That is the most important thing to do. Krishna has told Arjuna also that do your duty, but then they forget that what actually it means, because they have not heard it from a bona fide guru or under parampara. They just read on their own and they just speculated their own meaning out of it, what was convenient for them.
yeah. And also you see, when we are understanding Bhagavad Gita, we have to understand all the 700 verses. We can't just choose one verse and say no. Because Krishna says to Arjuna, you fix your mind on me and then you do your duty. Krishna also says that to Arjuna. I think it's in 8.7.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the point.
On me, yes. And then he said that how can I fix my mind? Like, how can I? Then he tells the different paths, like how you can fix your mind. You can practice, remember me. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Thank you for this. Very important.
Yeah. The purport may be understood as follows. Humanity may be divided into two sections, namely the regulated and non-regulated. Those who are engaged simply in bestial sense gratifications without knowledge of their next life or spiritual salvation belong to the non-regulated section. And those who follow the principles of prescribed duties in the scriptures are classified amongst the regulated section. The non-regulated section, both civilized and non-civilized, educated and non-educated, strong and weak, are full of animal propensities. The activities are never auspicious because while enjoying the animal propensities of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, they perpetually remain in material existence, which is always miserable. On the other hand, those who are regulated by scriptural injunctions and who thus rise gradually to Krishna consciousness certainly progress in life. So, what Prabhupada is trying to explain is we can understand that there is those who are regulated and non-regulated. Regulated and non-regulated. The non-regulated are the ones who say, I don't need to follow the scriptures. For what will I follow any rules and regulations? I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And that is basically animalistic life. We want to eat, sleep, mate, and defend, and do nothing else. And regulated, yes, we will do these activities, but not overindulging in them, but doing them in a manner which will not give us adverse reactions. Not give us adverse reactions. And so if we follow the scriptures and engage in these activities, then we have a chance to gradually elevate our consciousness, not degrade our consciousness. If we say, I'm not going to follow any rules and regulations, I'm going to just behave like an animal, then we are degrading our consciousness to animalistic life. And then Mother Nature will say, well, your consciousness is like an animal, so you need a body of an animal to be able to function in that consciousness. You don't need the body of a human being. But if we follow rules and regulations, then we are elevating our consciousness, and we can have an opportunity to rise up to Krishna consciousness then. So those who are following the path of auspiciousness can be divided into three sections, namely, one, the followers of scriptural rules and regulations who are enjoying material prosperity, those who are trying to find ultimate liberation from material existence, and those who are devotees in Krishna consciousness. Those who are following the rules and regulations of the scriptures for material happiness may be further divided into two classes: those who are fruitive workers and those who desire no fruit for sense gratification. So kind of the yoga ladder is given. Now, we understood that there are two kinds of people broadly. One is saying, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. I will not follow any rules and regulations. Another, okay, I will follow rules and regulations. Now, the reason I want to follow rules and regulations is there can be two kinds. One is because I want to go to heavenly planets in the next life. I want to, or even in this life, I want greater enjoyment. I will, if I follow rules and regulations, I will not get sinful reaction. And I will not get sinful reaction. Instead, I will get pious reactions. Means I will get a higher status for enjoyment. So those are one kind. And another is I will follow rules and regulation, but I'm not attached to this fruit. I don't want this fruit. So those who are after further results for sense gratification may be elevated to a higher standard of life, even to the higher planets, but still, because they are not free from material existence, they're not following the truly auspicious path. The only auspicious activities are those which lead one to liberation. So one may follow rules and regulations, but still, because they still want to enjoy material life, they still want to enjoy material life. So that is not the perfection. The perfect path, the auspicious path, is only the path which will give us liberation. Any activity which is not aimed at ultimate self-realization or liberation from the material bodily concept of life is not at all auspicious. So anything, any activity which is going to take us away from our real position, which is going to take us away from liberation, that's not auspicious. But anything which is going to give us liberation is auspicious. Activity in Krishna consciousness is the only auspicious activity, and anyone who voluntarily accepts all bodily discomforts for the sake of making progress on the path of Krishna consciousness can be called a perfect transcendentalist under severe austerity. So we are trying to understand that auspiciousness in the material world is only any activity which is going to take us to liberation, true liberation, perfect liberation, and that is only Krishna consciousness. So that means Krishna consciousness is the only auspicious activity. That's the only auspicious activity. And one should voluntarily accept austerity so that one can make progress in Krishna consciousness. Like we was reading yesterday, austerity like fasting on Ekadashi, fasting on the appearance days of the Lord. So those kind of voluntary accepting some kind of austerity, it gives rise to devotion in our heart. It helps us make progress in the path of Krishna consciousness. And because the Eightfold Yoga system is directed toward the ultimate realization of Krishna consciousness, such practice is also auspicious, and no one who is trying his best in this matter need fear degradation. So the Ashtanga Yogi, one who's really a Ashtanga Yogi, one who understands the real path of Ashtanga Yoga, because his also idea is he wants to understand the Paramatma, the Supreme Lord. So even he is on the correct path of liberation. And his path is also auspicious. So Krishna consciousness is the most auspicious activity, and one need not fear degradation. That's what Prabhupada is explaining, that once one takes up this process of Krishna consciousness, even though one is not able to complete it, then we should not fear that we will get degraded. No, how much ever we have progressed in Krishna consciousness, we will begin from that point in our next life, if we are not able to complete it in this life. So we can see there is no loss. As Krishna says, there's no loss or diminution in this endeavor. Even a slight beginning of devotional service saves us from the greatest type of danger. So we should, with all sincerity, take up this process of Krishna consciousness. Well, we may not even be sincere, but we should just take up the process of Krishna consciousness and everything will follow. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So understanding that everything material, it's going to finish, but our Krishna consciousness will remain with us. That's our real asset. It's our spiritual asset. No one can take it away from us. That's the only thing we can take with us to our next destination. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll stop here for today. Thank you so much for listening and enjoying it. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Shilpa Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.